Alright. I see no reasons to delay. My mashing feels slow today. That's not the greatest, but it's good enough. Alright, so I should probably be practicing commentary, so I should probably try explaining things as I'm going. So right now we're going to do a jump into a cutscene to preserve our speed, since we have elevated speed right now. There are two levels of elevated speed. Both of them look like a green trail behind us right now, but later on the second level is going to turn gold. So the first level is called Green Dash, and the second level is called Gold Dash. By jumping into cutscenes, we can store our level of dash, and then we can jump out of the cutscene to regain that level of dash, if we do it correctly. Right here we're going to avoid a fight. We can just run around this trigger, it's not very big, so we can skip it. And coming up here we're going to be skipping yet another trigger, because this one we can also run around. And this is going to be a pretty common theme. There's a bunch of fights that are supposed to be required, but we're going to skip them, just because they take too long. This is of course just the tutorial, where they teach all the basic mechanics, but there's nothing we can really do to skip this. So we have to go through it. We can also store dash through the water, by jumping into the water and then jumping at the end just as we get out. Like so. And that is the end of the tutorial. We have to cut a peach down here, but we can cut it even if it's on off screen, so we don't bother going that far. Isun's going to talk at us here. Isun being our pint-sized companion. He's a tiny swordsman that likes to talk a lot, so we try to skip his text as much as possible. So all of the people in Kamiki Village here have been turned to stone, and we need to observe the statues before Isun will let us realize our true strength. Yeah, if you run into most NPCs, you'll get some text. Of course, these guys are statues, so Isun steps in for them. And then right here, coming up, after we talk to this third statue, we're going to skip running around the mountain by doing some precise platforming here. Yep, mess it up. This trick is affectionately called Uppy Thingy. And it avoids running around the whole mountain. So there we go, that's Sunrise, our inherent ability. And here we're just going to kill these green imps. These are the first enemies we're going to fight in battle. These are green imps. They go down in 2 power slashes, which is one of our brush powers, or a power slash and a regular attack. At the end of this fight here, we're going to build dash before a cutscene plays, so that we have full speed coming right out of the battle, which saves a bunch of time. Right here, we're going to be picking up our first battle item. This is a small exorcism slip. The battle items in Okami are actually very overpowered, but they're in limited supply. Fortunately, we can also limit the number of battles we have to do. Here we have to do this minigame here for a story event later, but we can knock it out now while we're still here. It requires a bit of mashing. Oh, I picked up the radish. We have to dig up all of these radishes while not letting this lady slap us. That lady is Mushi's mom, and Mushi is that kid over there with the dog. And this is Mushi's dad. Now that we've given Mushi back his dad, we're going to restore this water wheel. And this allows the resident love interest, Kushi, to continue making sake. She's also a sake brewer. Sake being the Japanese word for alcohol. And if we talk to her twice, she's going to give us some alcohol because everyone knows dogs love alcohol. But unfortunately, we can't drink it. And also, even more unfortunately, we cannot bark while we are carrying things like alcohol. So, we're going to have to go barkless for a brief moment. Here's another fight. So that was a pretty good fight. That enemy there, the red one, that's a red imp. It's slightly more powerful than a green imp, and it also has the ability to block attacks with its stringed instrument. Ethan here is going to teach us about a bit of an interesting mechanic. We can upgrade some of our abilities using praise, which is a sort of currency you get from various events in the story, mainly side quests and like collectibles. Basically, we can upgrade our health, the number of ink pots we have, our maximum number of lives, although we won't be using that one, and the size of our wallet. And the only ones we're really going to be using are the number of ink pots and our wallet, because surprisingly we actually need more money than we can hold at some later points in the game. This here is Susanoo. He's a legendary swordsman, and he's also extremely lazy. So we have to drag him out here to destroy this boulder. But he doesn't want to do it because he wants to get drunk. So we're going to bring him the alcohol that Kushi gave us. And also, he's not really a legendary swordsman, he's a bit of a fraud. So we have to help him do his swordsmanry. So we're going to destroy these statues for him. These dummies. But here's a bit of an interesting thing. This is a type of rock we can't actually destroy ourselves, but through our combined efforts we can destroy it. So Susanoo's not totally worthless. It's only through our combined abilities that we can overcome great things like this boulder here. So yeah, now that the boulder's gone, we can leave the village. And outside the village we find Shinshu Field. So Shinshu Field's covered in a whole bunch of caviar, or whatever you want to call it, and we need to get rid of it. So in order to do that, we need to make that tree there that Eason's going to show us right now. Yeah, that tree. We need to make it bloom, because the beautiful flowers will blow away the caviar, or something like that. So we're going to, instead of doing that right away, since we don't actually have the ability to do that, we're going to go get the ability to do that, which is over here in this cave. Just a bit of a detour. This cave is Hana Valley, and it too has been corrupted by the evil, although there's no caviar here. So yeah, we're basically just trying to dispel evil across the land of Nippon. And here, right up here, is 5 enemies. This is the campfire fight. Now we don't really want to fight 5 enemies, so we're going to make use of that overpowered battle item that I picked up earlier, which is the Exorcism Slip. And it just kills all of them instantly. Exorcism Slips are basically screen nukes. They damage everything on the field depending on their level of strength. There's a small, medium, and large version. The version I just used is the small one, so even the small one is powerful enough to defeat all of those enemies. But there are going to be a bunch of more powerful enemies later on in the game, especially bosses that we're going to have to use multiple larger Exorcism Slips to defeat. So we're going to be picking up a bunch of them along the way, as well as buying a bunch of them with the limited money we get from battles. So this here is a weird tablet. Bowser Jr. came here and he drew on the tablet, so we need to go address that. Here we're going to get a new enemy. This enemy here is a yellow imp, that guy in the back. We're going to cover him in ink, and we're just going to kill these green imps while he wipes off the ink. Now, the unfortunate thing is that right now, based on the abilities we have, this yellow imp's a bit of RNG. Okay, so we have to wait for him to do the right attack to make himself vulnerable, because if he does any of the other attacks, he'll just dig underground. Oh, he did it again, dude. So each time he does something, it's basically 4 or 5 seconds lost. Okay, there's the attack we want him to do. So that makes him vulnerable, and then we can just instant kill him. But ideally, you'd get that on the first cycle. Fortunately, we can skip every other yellow imp fight until we get the ability to actually fight him without RNG. But it is quite annoying. So there I used R3 to flip the camera behind Ami quickly. Just a small optimization that comes up a few times in the run. Because moving the camera around with the C-stick is actually pretty slow. So we would instead prefer to move Ami around, because turning Ami's direction is instant, and then use R3 to make the camera snap behind her. So this here is the bud of a guardian sapling, and in order to dispel evil we need to not only grow the bud, but then bloom it. So instead we're just going to go into this cave here, because that sounds more fun. I messed up a bit there, not a big problem. So there's this bear here, and Susano's here too. So just like before, Susano needs our help in order to defeat some torches. These are basically QTEs, they're always the same, and we've tabbed out exactly what we need to do for each step and every one. But they're still kind of fun. This here is a ball push. This is the only time in the game where we actually have to push a ball somewhere, but the ball physics in this game are quite annoying, so we can waste a lot of time on it. Yeah, see, you can just teleport through the ball sometimes. It is less than stellar. Sometimes you get lucky and it does exactly what you want it to do, but it's difficult to get it consistently right. There we go, finally. That one was really slow. So this ball is actually a magical crystal that amplifies sunlight and instantly grows trees. Oh man, I'm losing a lot of time here. Between the bad RNG on the yellow imp fight and the bad ball push. So this gives us the bloom ability, which lets us make trees and other plants grow. So now evil is dispelled from Hana Valley, but there's still some demons lying around, so we're actually going to skip a fight here. This would be a repeat of the yellow imp fight earlier, which we don't want to do because it's RNG. So we're just going to do a bit of a precise jump around it. These are some enemy cherry blossoms that we passed by earlier, and we're just going to ignore them. We can also use bloom to restore these cursed patches of grass, but we're not going to do that. Or we're going to do it only a couple times later in the run, where it's required. here is going to be a repeat of the campfire fight, but we can skip this too, because we can literally just run around it. It's very easy. Fortunately, we can skip that since we don't have another exorcism slip to end it quickly. So finally, we now have the ability to actually remove all of the caviar in Shinshu Field. Those green slips are basically non-scripted battles. If we run into one of those, then we'll get stuck in a battle, and we'd like to avoid those. If it's nighttime, those scrolls will actually chase you around, and we have to go all the way around them to make sure they can't hit us. Here we need to buy a couple things, so we're just going to talk to this merchant here. We're going to be buying yet another type of overpowered battle item, which is the Steel Fist Sake. So that something like doubles your attack power. I don't know if it's exactly doubling, but it increases your attack power by a lot. And in a lot of cases, it helps us end battles quickly, especially in times where, for one reason or another, we might not be able to use exorcism slips. Steel Fist Sake is also a lot cheaper than even the cheapest exorcism slip, so it's obviously preferable to use it whenever they're comparable. Here we're going to be starting an optional side quest called the Wanted List. This is basically a way to fight specific enemies, or like, you have to go around fighting named enemies. So here we're going to be fighting Izo, so that's a okay one. So we have to defeat this particular red imp. There we go. Just gonna quickly defeat him. We don't actually want to do this side quest. The reward for it is kind of useless to us, but the nice thing is that the tutorial for it turns at night, and we need it to be night for this next part of the game to get this next ability. So Izo is right here. Yeah, the recognition on this part is a bit annoying. It'll sometimes fail. Then we have to swim over here. Now that it's night, we can go get this next brush power from that guy over there, that house, which is the house of Tama, the Pyrotechnics specialist. So guess what our next ability is going to be. While we're swimming here, we have a breath meter. We have limited breath while we're swimming, similar to like Wind Waker. And we can swim a bit faster by mashing the jump button. And then we're going to have another scripted fight here. This enemy is called a dead fish. Ideally, the enemies would line up in a convenient pattern here, but they didn't. So we have to do an extra hit on that guy. So we have to talk to this guy 3 times, and then we can get our next ability. This next ability here is a cherry bomb. The sign for it is... Oh, hi Cinder. The sign for it is a circle with a line through it. Now you might see me mess this up a lot, because it's pretty hard to draw it quickly. But obviously you want to be as fast as possible, so I'm not going to waste too much time on it. There we go. 2 for 2. Yeah, that guy almost got me. Next here, we're going to be setting a fast travel point. Now we can't use fast travel until a fair bit later in the run, but it's going to be very important to have it, to have these fast travel points already set up. So the fast travel points take the form of mermaid springs. Oh, here's a yellow imp. So this is the strategy. We use cherry bombs to blow them up. So that's why we can now kill them without RNG, so we can now hit them without them making themselves vulnerable. Yeah, that's what I do too, Cinder. There we go. Almost let him go. Sometimes if you do things in the wrong order, he survives the initial combo. So there's some text we can't actually skip, so we just have to hold X through it. Next here, we're supposed to get another brush power right now, but this is the first time we can skip a brush power. So this is called Water Lily Skip or Lily Pad Skip, depending on who you ask. Basically, we're not supposed to be able to jump out of the water, but if you go into the right kind of corner, then you can jump out. And that gives us just enough height to make it over to this ledge here, where this is what we're supposed to have Water Lily for, which is an ability that lets you make platforms on the water. If you're not precise there, you can drown, which means you have to retry the trick. Now, anyway, as it turns out, Agata is also covered in caviar, but the tree is a lot easier to get to than the tree in Shinshu. So we can just run in here. The tree is actually right below us. The camera here is a bit annoying. There's a lot of places where Okami takes your control away from the camera, and generally it only causes problems, even if it looks a bit more cinematic. Here's going to be another scripted battle. This is our fruity deuteragonist, Waka. Basically, he wants us to think that he's the enemy, but he's really our friend from 100 years ago, and we lost our memory, something like that. We're going to defeat him using overpowered battle items, which is the Steel Fist Sake, and then some cherry bombs, and that makes quick work of him. This is a common strategy we'll be using for a lot of fights in the run. Is Steel Fist Sake with cherry bombs, because it just does a ton of damage. Then here we have a fishing minigame. This boy here, he lost his dog Ume in the next dungeon that we need to get to. So we're going to help him fish out the key to the dungeon from the lake. So he was also fishing without a fishing line, so we need to draw the fishing line in for him, because he's not the most clever forest kid. He also makes some funny sounds. This here is the box crab. It's the cheapest fish. Each fish you can sell for money. You try to avoid getting the cheap fish, but it doesn't really matter for the money route. So I just give them omens of luck. The box crab is the crab of ill omens, and then the best fish we can get, besides the scripted fish here, is the crayfish, which is the crayfish of good luck. This is a giant salmon, so we just have to catch this one, because this is the one that actually swallowed the key. Unfortunately, Kakari here wanted to go save his dog himself, but he's obviously incapable because he doesn't know how to fish. So we're going to go save his dog for him, which means he's going to be quite angry at us because we're going to steal the key. So we need to dash away from him really quick before he gets the key back. Here we're going to be picking up from this... these are buds. They're basically chests that you have to bloom to open. We're going to get another small exorcism slip, and we're going to be using that later to end a fight quickly. So we just have to watch this pretty long cutscene of the door opening, because you can't skip some... there's a lot of cutscenes that you can't skip until dialogue starts, and in a lot of those cutscenes there's not dialogue until like halfway through. Right here we're going to be skipping a cutscene that normally plays to like introduce the area, and camera pans over the whole thing, and it's like 15 seconds of unskippable camera pan. We'd like to avoid it, so we can skip it with that precise jump right there. And we're just going to sort of blitz through the rest of this dungeon. Now this dungeon's one of the only dungeons that we don't really have any major skips for. We still have to go through every required room. So it's kind of unfortunate, but there are a few smaller things that we're going to be doing, like that cutscene skip I showed you at the beginning. Right here is intended to be another required use of Water Lily, but we can skip it with a precise jump off the wall here. Like so. And then coming up here, this is a new enemy. This is a Bud Ogre. These guys are a bit annoying. we have to bloom them after making them vulnerable to actually open them up. Then I have to upgrade my ink because I ran out. This is a strategy we use a couple other times in the run where we deliberately run out of ink and then use an ink refill or an ink upgrade to refill our ink. Then this is going to be a puzzle here where we're supposed to push the ball down the hallway to like hold down a switch, but we can actually just use a cherry bomb because they're the same shape. Accident. Yep, I did it correctly. It's a bit precise on the camera position there to draw the cherry bomb in the right place, but we can just run through the door before the bomb explodes. And then right here we actually have a fight with two Bud Ogres, and this time, in order to take them out quickly, we're just going to use a Steel Fist Sake, which makes this a lot easier to get through, and we're just going to combo them out. So right again, we're going to run out of ink. And they're dead. Coming up here, there's going to be some like mushrooms that appear. We're intended to draw the sun to make the mushrooms grow. Don't ask how that makes sense. Which creates platforms. But we can just do this cool jump to get around it. And then here there's going to be a cool Indiana Jones sequence. So this bridge is obviously important. Then Yusun's gonna sneeze, and the bridge is gonna start collapsing. Even though we were running right across it, and he's only like an inch tall, but his sneeze is still powerful enough to make the bridge explode. And coming up here is a unique friend. This is Blockhead. He's going to stand in our way, even though we don't actually want to go that way anyway. And we have to poke at his weak points in order to defeat him. Oh, looks like I missed. The weak points, like the locations for them, are a bit unobvious. So we can just have to try again. I'm not getting good patterns here. Okay, so defeating him unlocks this key, and we need this key because there's a locked door up ahead. But as it turns out, in Okami, locked doors are not just locked doors, they're actually demons. And this key is not just a key, it is an exorcism arrow. And guess what's going to happen here? Get stabbed in the eye. Which is a good explanation for why the keys are one-time use. Then coming up here, there's this blue scroll. We don't want to fight him, but there's also another exorcism slip here. So we can skip around this blue scroll by jumping here, and that avoids his range. And then here's a bridge that we have to rejuvenate. This room is the triple gate room. These are devil gates. We hit one earlier, but I never really explained what they are. They're basically fixed position demon scrolls, and they usually cause some event when you defeat them. So they're meant to be a bit harder than regular demon scrolls, and these ones do take up quite a bit of time, so it is a bit annoying. Hopefully this guy's gonna give me some ink. There we go. That was kind of sloppy, but you do what you can do. These are some just health pickups, even though we don't need them. They're just scripted in this fight. We're going to see another yellow imp. Unfortunately, we're not getting good spreads here, so we have to defeat these enemies separately. I do not have ink for this. This is not going well. Yeah, sometimes the spawns of the enemies are randomized, so sometimes they spawn in really bad positions and you can't deal with them all at once. And that's just difficult. It's especially important when you only have enough ink to hit a limited number of them and you want to hit them, like, multiple of them at once. Like, this is a terrible spread because I can't even hit all of these guys at once. Should be everyone. Okay, so we accidentally performed a floral finisher. Each enemy has a special finishing move which will cause them to, like, release a Demon Fang, which is a type of collectible. So by drawing the sun there, we can grow these mushrooms, which is something we skipped doing earlier. You have to watch these mushrooms grow. We can't skip growing these mushrooms, even though we're not going to climb up them, because we have to destroy these pots here, and these pots don't exist until you grow the mushrooms, for some reason. So we're just going to do a bit of a setup here to power slash them from below. Should be everything. So we're just going to leave. Now that we've destroyed those pots, we've basically freed... Those pots were basically releasing a bunch of poison into the ruins, which is why the whole ruins were cursed. So we just freed them from that. So we're going to go into this tree here now that we can swim through the water. And we have to uncurse these curse patches. So for these, we just draw circles. There's nothing we can do to make this faster. We just have to put a specific amount of ink down, so we just draw a specific number of circles. And once we bloom all 3 of these patches, we get a new ability, and this one is Vine. This lets us, it's sort of like a hookshot. This lets us draw ourselves to flowers, or to draw other things to flowers, things that have hooks on them. So it's only with these pink flowers. Anyway, we're going to abuse that fact right here, because as it turns out, we can actually get to the final room in the dungeon faster than intended, because the final room in the dungeon is stored directly under this room. So by doing a clever clip there, we can actually get under the map. So hope I did that correctly. Yes, I got it. Excellent. So that trick is quite difficult, and it only saves about 18 seconds. It's affectionately called Cookie Clip after Giant Cookie Jar, who discovered it. And there's going to be a lot more cool stuff like that later in the run, but that's one of the first cool clips we do. And now we're in the final boss's room. This is a golden gate. They're basically like soft saves. If you die, you return to them automatically. But we don't really need it, so we're just going to jump over it, which skips a tutorial. This is the first boss. This is Spider Queen. She's a bit of a pushover. We're in no danger here. We just need to make her vulnerable. And as soon as those flowers disappear, we can use our 2 exorcism slips that we picked up earlier. And we're just going to destroy the eyes on her back with power slashes. Looks like I missed one, so we're just going to run up and destroy it. So that was a save prompt. We don't want to save in this run because we can't use saves since it's signal segment only. And we rescued the dog Ume, which is that pink dog we were carrying. From here we can progress on to the next area, but we first want to take care of some side stuff. The first order of business is we want to go get this item here. Drawing circles is hard. This is an Inkfinity Stone. This briefly gives us an unlimited supply of ink. And there's a few times where we want to use a lot of ink in a short amount of time, so it's going to be helpful later. And then this up here is another fast travel point. We actually have to get close enough to it for it to activate. So we're just going to activate it now and then turn around. You wouldn't have even seen it, but it's another mermaid spring. And this here, we have to get across this river. Unfortunately, you can't just jump across the river. It's just barely wide enough that we can't skip this whole process. But skipping it would save about 3 minutes, if we could. Instead, we have to do this this bridge minigame, where we have to use this log to make a bridge by using vines on it. It might look like I have super fast reflexes here, but I actually just know exactly when the flowers are going to pop up. So now the log's in place, don't ask how that happened. We're skipping a bunch of stuff here. So yeah, just like every area up till now, this is Taka Pass, and it too is plagued by the black caviar. So we're going to actually buy some stuff right now. We need some supplies for some stuff that we're going to be doing soon. I messed it up. So we can sell our fish here. We get a fair amount of yen for it. We need 4 feed bags because we're going to be feeding some stuff. 2 XMs and then 5 SFS. And then we can move on. So, obviously, just like all the areas before, we need to bloom the tree in this area in order to disperse the black caviar. But our friend Waka here is going to fight us again, and we're going to deal with him exactly the same way as we did before. But first we're going to equip a new weapon we got, which is just a tiny bit stronger than the weapons we already had. This fight's pretty much exactly the same as the first time we fought Waka, except he has a bit more health, so we need 4 cherry bombs to defeat him, not 2. Or not 3, I mean. Really. And there you go. Dead. So the weapon we equipped, it's another reflector. So there are 3 types of weapons in this game. All of them are called divine instruments, but there's a reflector, a rosary, and a glaive. Or well, there's reflectors, rosaries, and glaives. We're not going to be using any of the other 2 types of weapons because we're either going to skip getting them or they're just not going to be helpful to us. So we're only going to be using reflectors in the run, but we're barely going to be using reflectors anyway since we're usually going to be using more powerful types of attacks to defeat enemies. This type of tree, we actually have to get close enough to it for it to recognize the bloom, or else it just won't work. Thank you, Azer, for the good luck. I appreciate it. I don't really see this world recording, but obviously anything's possible with several minutes of potential time save in Fire Tab Skip. But we're just going to do our best. So anyway, now that we've expelled the evil from Taka Pass, we're going to go to the next village, which is Kusa Village. And Kusa Village, unfortunately, is way far up in the mountains. It's a very annoying long-distance travel. So we need to go dispel the evil from there too. So the cursed zone in Kusa Village is a bit different from the caviar in other areas. It's not going to hurt us physically, but it will drain our ink away. So we want to reach the next place before our ink drains away completely, or else we'll not be able to dash. because when we run out of ink, we can no longer use our elevated speed, dash speed, which slows us down quite a bit. So the cause of this evil is actually just a regular enemy that humans can't deal with because they're lame. So this is Princess Fusei. She's a priestess, but even she is not powerful enough to... yeah, we can't even use our ink in this area. Right? That guy needs to die. That's a blue imp. That's the only one we'll ever fight, as far as I'm aware. They're all quite lame. So now that we defeated the blue imp, the curse zone is cleared. Didn't really take that long. And then Princess Fusei is actually responsible for a group of legendary warriors called the Satomi Canine Warriors. And in order to defeat the next boss, we actually have to collect all 8 of the Canine Warriors together in Kusa Village. Here's one of them. He's hungry, so we're going to give him some food. And then he'll thank us for the food and go back to Fusei. So there's only actually 5 dogs that are in the village. Guess where the other 3 dogs are going to be. Running into a wall. This here is Mr. Bamboo. He's going to be important later. He has an adopted daughter named Kaguya. And Kaguya is in great danger because she was kidnapped by the Emperor of Japan for unknown reasons. So we're not going to save her, by the way. She's going to languish in jail forever. Unfortunately, but we don't need to save her, so we will not bother. She's also an alien, but that's not really important. Here's Sasano again. This time he's asleep. So we're just going to ignore him. We're only going to see him awake one more time in the run. Here's another dog. He was hiding in the curse patch. We have to feed him too. All of them give us a bit of praise, which we'll be using later to upgrade ourselves. We can use this flower here to jump up. And obviously there's going to be a dog up here too. In this whole segment, we're actually kind of locked to the night cycle. We have to wait for it to turn night for one of the next things we need to do, so... Being a bit slow on movement isn't too bad, but we do have to be fast on menuing, because when you're menuing or using the brush or in a battle, daytime does not pass. So the whole point of this segment is to sort of minimize times you're spending in menus by just mashing well. But you don't have to be too worried about your movement. This floating thing here that you see next to us is the canine tracker. It alerts us to the location of dogs. Yep. Fell down. Not supposed to happen. Oh well. Obviously movement isn't too important in this segment, like I said before. And this fight, or this dog here is actually going to fight us because he's angry. But he's similar to Waka in that he's very vulnerable to explosives, much like most dogs. A very realistic depiction of canines. Unlike Waka, however, he's a lot better at fighting back. Although he might not get to show that. Yeah, he just died instantly. So the dog fights, they have a lot of attacks that can make them invincible temporarily, and that can slow down these fights by a lot. So these fights are kind of RNG, based on whether you get a lucky pattern for them becoming invincible, and how well you deal with that. But we have a lot more tools to deal with it than we did for, say, Yellow Imp RNG, so there's at least some skill involved. So now that we've rescued all 5 dogs in Kusa Village, we're going to go outside of Kusa Village. And we're going to find one of the dogs. But first we have to take care of a bunch of side quests. So the first thing we're going to do is run down this hill, which is long travel time. Well, then once we're down this hill, look at that. That's a dried up puddle right there. Guess what might be there? And there's Devil Gate. So this Devil Gate's just some enemies we fought before. He's down. And he's down. So the whole point of this fight was to restore this Mermaid Spring, which is yet another fast travel point we will be using later. And then here we're actually going to do a side quest that's normally optional. You don't have to do this in a casual playthrough, but we do have to do this for the run, because this replaces something that's normally required. Basically, this starts a long side quest that lets us get a replacement for a power that we're going to skip. But we're basically going to get the upgrade of that power, which you're not supposed to normally get until you get the power itself. But we can skip getting the original power and just get the upgrade, and it's just as good where we actually need it to be. So these guys are the Molsters. They stole someone's teacup. So we have to go retrieve that teacup for the person they stole it from by playing a game of whack-a-mole. And then when we return this teacup, come on, we get a golden mushroom, which so we're still not there yet. In fact, we're not going to actually get what we need for a fair bit longer. So just keep that in the back of your mind, that we now have a golden mushroom. And now this is where we needed to be before nightfall, so we did make it in time. We're probably going to be sitting tight for about like 15 to 30 seconds. So we just need to wait up here, and then as soon as it turns night, we're going to fall down the hole. So the people who live in this house are the horrible Mr. and Mrs. Cutter, and they're actually demons in disguise, who have kidnapped the bird, or the child of the boss of the Sparrow clan. The kidnapped Sparrow being named Chun, and we need to rescue Chun so that the Sparrow clan will let us into their Sparrow Inn, where we can get our next brush power. So as it turns out, they're actually just regular enemies. These are Crow Tengu. We might fight them a couple more times, but probably not often. And then in this backpack here is Chun. So Chun's kind of useless, but the main benefit is that she comes with a great soundtrack. This music is pretty cute. So we're just gonna run back here. The Sasa Sanctuary is just right over there, so it's not out of the way at all. Just need to make sure we avoid the Demon Scroll. And here's Sasa Sanctuary. So now that we've rescued the boss's daughter, he will let us into the Sasa Sanctuary, which is actually an inn and a bathhouse, and it has a bamboo grove in the back. All of which are important facts. But we're not going to see the boss, because the rewards he gives us are actually useless. We don't need any of them. So instead we're just going to talk to this bath attendant here, and unfortunately the water in the bathhouse has gone dry, so he needs to go dig up the water with Mr. Bamboo here, who I mentioned earlier. Don't ask why he's helping us dig up the water. But we're basically just going to explode the ground here to make this quick. We can just speed him up there with the circle. And we're just going to sit where we know the water actually is, and we're just going to mash dig until he comes over and allows us to dig there. So this is the first of many abilities of the same type. This is Waterspout. It lets us draw a line from a water source to somewhere else, and it like moves the water there. So we can use it to like put out fires and stuff, and to fill up basins. If I don't fall in the water myself. But it's not particularly useful, but we do need it. So this is actually one of the last parts that we need before we can do a big skip that's going to come up soon. But since we're already here, we're going to handle some other side questy stuff. Or well, main questy stuff, technically. This guy here, he's upset that his dog has disappeared. And we happen to know exactly where his dog has disappeared to, which is this bamboo grove that's in the back. So his dog is hiding inside a giant bamboo shoot. Don't ask me how he got there. So this is Taka. This is yet another dog. And we're going to defeat him the same way. So this time he's going to do a charge attack. Unfortunately, he's being quite evasive. Dang it, I'm getting some terrible RNG here. Oh my goodness. This is probably the worst dogfight I've ever had. That was extraordinarily bad. I kept jumping around and I kept messing up my cherry bombs. Anyway. Now that we defeated Taka, we could go find the other two dogs, or like the last two dogs of the 8. But instead we're actually going to go do like the next third of the game that's supposed to happen after that, because we can, and it makes some hard tricks earlier in the run, which is quite convenient. So right now we're going to an area that we're allowed to visit early, but we're not supposed to be able to cross that area. So you can sort of see it up ahead. This is a city checkpoint, so there's this giant bridge over this giant river here. And normally we're supposed to use an ability that lets us It's basically the fire equivalent of Waterspout. It's called Inferno, and lets us lower this bridge by lighting this guy's arrow on fire, but we can't do that yet, so instead we're just going to swim across the river and climb up the cliff. So this is probably the hardest or second hardest trick in the game, depending on who you ask. We can just barely make it across this river swimming. Alright, just barely made it. I could have drowned there and I would have had to start over. So by climbing up this rock in a very precise way, we can land on the top and then do a sliding ground tackle, which lets us do a ground jump in the air, and it lets us do a precise maneuver that lets us just get up the cliff. None of the stuff you're supposed to be able to do. It's all incredibly precise. I messed it up. That was too low. This trick has like a million different ways to fail it. It's incredibly detailed, and there's a lot of muscle memory that goes into it. Okay, made it. And now we're across. So if you look behind us, you can see none of this stuff here has back-facing polygons, so obviously you're not supposed to get this far. Hello, Firestar Rocks. This is Ryoshima Coast. We're not supposed to get here until we've done like 2 more dungeons. Or 2 more shrines, I should say, but we're here early, so we can do some stuff. So obviously the curse zone has spread to here as well, and we have to go fix it. We're going to go into the curse zone here briefly in order to skip a fight. Similar to swimming, you have a limited amount of time you can spend in the curse zone before you get kicked out. So we just barely have enough time there to make it all the way around that fight trigger. We can skip. We have to raise the water through these basins here, but we can skip the middle basin, or one of the middle basins, using a camera trick. If I can get it correctly. So this here is the Ryoshima Guardian Sapling. So now we've done that, we're going to go get the double jump ability, which we need to go to a dojo to get it, because we learn it from a master. And the dojo is a bit far away, so we're actually just going to clip into it. Now, that might not make sense, but basically in Okami, interiors are stored underneath the map of the corresponding exterior area. And where they're stored under the map is not determined by where they are on the overworld. So the interior of the dojo is stored under this shrine here, and if we can clip out of bounds, which does take a couple tries, then we can just fall into it. We have to align ourselves carefully not to hit the void, but once we're aligned, we can just fall down and we'll land in there. And here's the dojo. So quite a cool little clip there. It's not the only time we'll be doing that kind of clip either. There's a couple other places where it comes up. So now we have double jump. I messed it up. This is quite important because it lets us do a bunch of things that are otherwise impossible. This is where the dojo actually is. It's on the other side of Ryoshima Coast. But we don't have to worry about that. We sort of just get a free ride. So we just swim to shore here. And then coming up here is a fight that we're going to skip yet again. This one we just barely can skip. This is a fight with an enemy called an Ubume, which is similar to a Krotengu. But we don't have the tools to defeat it quickly, so we would really avoid not to do the fight. Or we would really like not to do the fight. But the trigger is really big, so... Oh, managed to get around it. Excellent. Okay, you want to read that? So this is the capital city of Nippon. This is Seion, not Tokyo. And Seion is currently infested by a horrific plague, and all of the residents are literally dying. At least in the commoners' quarters. So we're going to ignore all of them. We're not going to help these people. Instead, we're just going to go to the left right here. And we're going to set up for another interior clip. Because there's an area here that we actually can't get to this early in the game, normally. This area is supposed to be locked off until later. But we can get into it early using an interior clip. So we can just barely make it over the walls there. And then fall out of bounds here. So this guy here, we're going to give our golden mushroom to him. And in exchange, he is going to cook some really nice food. Food that's so nice that a god was hiding in it the whole time. And this gives us the power of Fire Burst, which is our replacement for Inferno. So Inferno, like I mentioned earlier, is the equivalent of Waterspout, but for fire. And in order to get it, we have to do a whole dungeon that takes about like 25 minutes. It's the longest dungeon in the whole game. It's called the Moon Cave, and we don't want to do it. So instead we're going to eat this rice that has 26,000 yen inside of it, also don't ask. And we get that ability, Fire Burst. Fire Burst is similar to Inferno, but it lets you create a ball of fire anywhere, rather than having to have a source of fire nearby. Unfortunately, it uses up a lot more ink, so it's kind of slower to use, but it is handy to have. And it'll replace the one time that we are actually required to use Inferno later on in the game, as well as come in handy for some extra properties it has that I'll get into when they become important. Here we're supposed to raise this bridge, but in order to do that we have to like fish with this guy here, because this dude's a fisherman. He's a swordsman that decides to become a fisherman. And he's a bit of a dick. He's lowered the bridge because he wants to fish, but there's no water here. So he won't raise the bridge until you fish with him, which in order to do that you have to bring the water back, which requires doing another digging minigame, and then you have to fish with him, and then he'll raise the bridge. But we can skip that with that precise platforming there. That's Sound Bridge skip. That's one of the harder tricks in the run. Here's Waka. And then here we're going to skip talking to a character that's inside this building named Rao. Rao's kind of evil, so we don't want to talk to her anyway. So we can just jump around it. So, and then here we're supposed to actually go to over there, which is another dungeon called the Imperial Palace. But we can skip that too. We just have to get past these guards. Normally supposed to have another ability to get past them, but we can sort of like distract them by bonking into them. And then get around the range at which they're supposed to recognize you and then teleport you out of the palace. And then here's the hardest trick in the entire run. This is Fire Tablet Skip. So this is a trick, it's coming up here. I have to set up for it down here. But this trick basically requires 5 frame perfect inputs, pretty much. With 1 extra frame of leniency between all of them. And it's quite difficult. So to get across here, basically the story is Queen Himiko, the Queen of Japan, has sort of locked herself behind a wall of flames because she wants to test you. Weird. And in order to swim through fire, you need an item called the Lava Tablet. But oh fuck, I almost had it for free. Anyway, in order to get the Fire Tablet, not the Lava Tablet, you need a bunch of you need to do a bunch of stuff, and we don't want to do any of that stuff, so we're just going to skip it. So I have to do a bunch of like setups here to make this easier, but it's still really hard. There's a bunch of different ways you can mess this up, which have various consequences. But we got it. That's Fire Tablet Skip, the hardest trick in the game, and we're actually going to have to do it again later, which is partly why it's actually the hardest trick in the game. Because it's just so specific, there's no way to be consistent about it, but you have to do it twice, which means you lose time no matter what. Because you're never going to get it first try twice in one run. Wait, let's talk to her more. So this is Queen Himiko. She's the Queen of Japan, but the important thing is that she is also the border patrol, and she'll give us a passport to go to the next area that we need to go to. And that's the only reason we're here. If we could skip past this gate that blocks off the next area, we wouldn't go here at all. Messed this up. So we actually have to jump over this sea of lava in both directions. So you might think this is what I meant when I said we have to do this trick twice in the run, but it's not. We actually have to jump over the sea of lava 4 times in the run, but it turns out doing it backwards is a lot easier than doing it forwards, even though it's still a pretty hard trick. So that was reverse Fire Tablet Skip. So we're gonna be back in Himiko's chamber later in the run. So now that we've gotten the pass to North Ryoshima Coast, we're just going to go through these guards, so they're going to teleport us out of the walls that we weren't supposed to be inside anyway. And we're going to go meet a character that we skipped meeting earlier, which is Lady Rao, or Rao the Priestess. So say hi to Rao. There she is. Now say bye, Rao. Because we're going to completely ignore her. So yeah, now that we've gotten our pass to North Ryoshima, we're just going to leave Seon. So we're going to ignore all of the dying people there. We're going to do this again later. So yeah, they're all going to die. But we're going to defeat evil, so it's not that important. Their sacrifice had a purpose, which is speed. So now that we have the pass, we can make them raise the gate, which means we can go right through. And this is North Ryoshima. So unlike all of the other areas in the game, this area has no black caviar. That's because our good friend Waka here has already dispelled all of the black caviar because he was lazy. Or he was too fast, basically. He's even more of a speedrunner than we are, because he always ends up in places before we get them. We're just going to instant kill this enemy. There's nothing we can do to skip this fight, so we just end it quickly with an exorcism slip. And we need to do some shopping. No, we're not buying 15, we're buying 5. That would have been a disaster. So we need to activate this mermaid spring here. We have to get quite close for it to activate. And then we can go move on. We need to, basically, as Queen Himiko would have told us, we need to go see the Queen of the Draconians, who are a race of people living under the sea. And in order to meet them, we need to actually get under the sea. And in order to get under the sea, we need to basically meet with the envoy of the Draconians, who's actually an orca. Hello? Okay, give it a second. Okay, now we can summon Orca. This is Orca, envoy of the Draconians. Basically, the whole reason we're doing this, the Draconians are supposedly in control of the water dragon, who's actually been terrorizing the shipping ships, the shipping industry for Seon City, which is partly why all the people are dying. So in order to get the water dragon to stop mucking up shipping and making everyone's Amazon Prime orders late, we need to go take up business with the Draconians. So this is a Catcall Tower. It's really tall, and we need to climb the whole thing. Fortunately, this area lets us walk on walls, but it still takes a whole bunch of mashing the jump button. This is actually like 200 straight inputs of mashing jump, which is very obnoxious. And this is the optimal rhythm. So it's 3 inputs for every 2 jumps. Eh. Oh. Okay, so the camera in here is really annoying. It does not work with me at all. You just have to find the right angle for it to actually behave. So we have to feed this cat here. It's a good kitty. So give it some fish. And that's the last time we'll be feeding an animal. There's actually like a ton of animals across the whole world that you can feed, and we only feed a few of them because that's what we have to do. For this next constellation here is a house for some reason, but inside the house is a cat, and the cat gives us the power to walk on walls. So we're going to ignore those marks. Basically, when we draw marks from the cat statue, we can walk on the wall where those marks are. That's all that power really does. But we need it because there's 3 times where we can't jump up a wall, and we need to use catwalk in order to get up it, which is the whole reason we do this area. If we could skip it, we would, because it's not technically required anywhere. So after this, we're going to go to Agata. And now we're finally going to resume helping Fusei find all of her 8 dogs. If you remember back way earlier, we sort of took a break from this. But first we have to help Kushi. And this is the last time we'll be seeing Susanoo awake. In fact, I think it's the last time we see Susanoo at all. So now we have to help Kokari fish again, because he lost something else in the lake. And he still doesn't know how to fish. Let's switch for some good luck, guys. Are we going to get the lobster? No. Damn, no lobster. Make some funny sounds. Oh, there we go, the lucky lobster. Okay. It's time, guys. Time for our luck to turn around. So this is the Whopper. Have it your way. But unfortunately he had it his way, and he swallowed the reflection of the moon off of the lake's surface. So now we get the ability to summon the moon whenever we want. Very, very good story there. That's Shinto mythology for you. Hey, we got a quick dogfight. Nice. So sometimes they just don't do anything and you can kill them really quick. It's very convenient when that happens. And now we're gonna go get the other dog, who we saw way earlier at the beginning of the game. So right now, as we enter Kamiki Village, Isun's actually going to stop us, because he thinks we still haven't done a side quest from the beginning of the game, where we're supposed to go touring around Shinshu. But fortunately the side quest's optional, so we can actually just tell Isun no, that we don't want to go see that stuff. For some reason Isun waits really long to talk there. I do not know why. The time is like variable too. I think it's based on the animation of the canine tracker. This is Hayabusa, the last dog fight. And yes, another quick dog fight. Excellent. So now that we finally collected all of the Satomi power orbs from the Satomi canine warriors, we need to go to the Gale Shrine. Now I did say that we were able to skip 2 dungeons earlier. It's not entirely true. We can skip 1.5 dungeons. So we can skip the Moon Cave because we can skip Inferno, which is the power you get there. But we cannot skip Gale Storm, which is the power we get in Gale Shrine. And that's the power to control wind. So we need to go get Gale Storm. But fortunately we can skip the second half of Gale Shrine where we're supposed to like go to the boss and actually use Gale Storm to defeat them. Because we don't need the story events that defeating the boss of Gale Shrine causes. It's gonna turn day real soon. So one special thing is because we went and did all that stuff before Gale Shrine, we actually have double jump right now, which we're not supposed to have. Now, unfortunately this isn't quite as broken as you would think, but there is going to be one big trick later coming up that having double jump right now helps us do. Or lets us do, it makes it possible. So this is Gale Shrine. Oh, and this is the last time we'll actually see Susanoo. I talked to this guy 3 different times for some reason. And this is the actual interior of Gale Shrine. So, unfortunately there's no way to clip into here early, because we can actually access the entry of this dungeon early, but we can't, like, clip through the barrier. It would save about, like, 20 minutes if it was as easy as just walking through. But obviously there would be some setup involved. This is a Chimera. These enemies are quite easy to defeat, they just take 3 cherry bombs. Except they have a counterattack, so we need to avoid it. Whenever you blow up an enemy, or like kill them with a cherry bomb, their money spreads everywhere. So we need to go collect it. And doing that gives us a key, that's why we went out here. Fortunately, if you drop keys, they will respawn in your mouth. Which means we don't need to carry it all the way there, which would prevent us from barking. But now we can't bark because it respawned. That's a bit of a shortcut we can do with double jump, but that's not the important thing. There's this elevator here, and this elevator is powered by cherry bombs, which is very annoying because it has like a whole cutscene. It's really slow. It would be nice to not have to wait for this, but we do. And here is another Chimera. And that gives us another key. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to drop this one, because the next place we want to be is right nearby. It's at the top of the elevator. So that burning chest there we're going to ignore. We can't do anything about it, and we don't want what's inside anyway. Because what's inside is just a map. And here is the viewing platform from which we can finally get Gale Storm. So we're counteracting these cursed winds by drawing them in the other direction. And that lets us rescue Gale Shrine from the evil clutches of Crimson Helm, who's the boss that we're going to ignore. So this is the trick. We can sort of clip out of bounds there, and as it turns out this is right over one of the earlier areas in the dungeon, and we can just fall through the ceiling, because ceilings are only one-sided in this game, but walls are two-sided. So now that we've done all that, one interesting thing is that as you're leaving there, Isun's text in English is, are you sure you want to leave? We can't ignore Crimson Helm forever. Crimson Helm being the boss of that dungeon, and of course we do in fact ignore him. Not exactly forever, we'll be coming back to Crimson Helm later, but not right now, and not here. We can actually jump on here with double jump, but it doesn't save any time. Just for looking cool. And with that, we're going to be heading out. So now that we have Gale Storm, we can continue with the story. Unfortunately, there's exactly one time where we absolutely need Gale Storm for a scripted event, and there's nothing we can do to replace it, unlike Inferno, which we can replace with Fire Burst. Yeah, I didn't need to buy that. I accidentally bought an extra item. Oh well. It's not gonna hurt anything, I don't think. So here we have to actually do a fight skip. So in order to get around this fight, we're just going to do this. And we're going to draw a shooting star for this guy. And he's going to make a wish that he could see the Spiral Galaxy. So the Spiral Galaxy is going to appear because logic. And in order to access the Dragon Palace, the home of the Draconians, the puzzle was we needed to open up the Whirlpool, and this is the Whirlpool Galaxy. So we're just going to spin it by blowing the wind here on Earth, here in Nippon, 3 times, and the Whirlpool Galaxy will spin enough to make the Whirlpool open. None of this makes any sense, but that's Shinto mythology for you. So having done that, we are going to go to Orca, and he's going to take us into the Dragon Palace. No. We do not want to hit any of those optional fights. That's the water dragon over there. When we're on Orca, we can actually just mash this button here, the jump button, to go a bit faster. Lots of gold splits today. That's nice. Anyway, so in order to get the Draconians to sort of deactivate the water dragon, we're going to go talk to the queen of the Draconians, Orihime, who's up this elevator. But then Orihime is going to tell us, actually we're not in control of the water dragon, and we need you to perform a hit job, so we're being hired as an assassin to kill the water dragon, which of course we're well equipped for the job, being a regular sized wolf, and I am choosing the wrong dialogue options. So here's the water dragon. As it turns out, he sleeps here. So we're just going to jump in. This would canonically be the second time we've been inside a living creature, except we skipped the first time. The first time would have been the Emperor of Japan, of course. Don't ask how we were supposed to get inside the Emperor of Japan. It's a long story that we skipped the entirety of because it's long. There's a bunch of blue scrolls here, which they'll chase us if we get too close, so it's kind of annoying, but we might have to escape from some fights if we're not careful. So now we got a key, and once again we can drop it for extra barking power. So as it turns out, the secret to the water dragon's power is this dragon orb here, or the water orb, I should say. So we're going to go steal that orb. Unfortunately, it has become biologically attached to the water dragon. So we're going to need to kill the water dragon to reobtain that. And as it turns out, the water dragon is filled with powerful stomach acid, which is bright red. Must have too much chromium. And if we waterspout the stomach acid to the membrane here, the membrane will pop, releasing a whole bunch of the acid. And we now have to swim through this acid. Now, of course, this acid hurts us too. And not only does it hurt us, but it's water, so we have limited breath. So we need to watch both our actual health and our breath while we're swimming here, to make sure we do not die. So while it's convenient, we're going to upgrade our wallet here. It is convenient, believe me. And then we're just going to continue swimming through after eating a bone, which restores our health while we're swimming. And as it turns out, the water dragon not only has the dragon orb, but it also has these foxes living inside it. So we're just going to kill the foxes, because we're also being the immune system. And that's all of the 2 foxes. As it turns out, they come in, there's 8 of them, they come in 3 waves. And we can just kill them instantly with a couple XLs, large exorcism slips. But then the water dragon is going to die. And there's a bunch of acid falling from the ceiling now, because the water dragon is dying from acid reflux. So the acid is complete RNG where it lands, and it can knock us out of the air, so we just have to hope that doesn't happen, because we can't really predict it. And nice, we managed to get by without getting knocked into the water down there, which wastes a whole bunch of time. There's really nothing you can do to prevent that. This happens maybe like 1 in 3 times. Quite annoying. But we managed to get through without getting hit by the acid, so it's very lucky. Anyway, we skipped a cutscene in which Rao came down and took the fox rods from us, which we got from defeating the 2 foxes inside the water dragon. There's no particular reason any of those things are connected, but I thought you guys should know. Basically, the Rao, as it turns out, is actually evil. I'm explaining this now because it's going to take a while to explain. So Rao is actually evil, but more importantly, she's a cosplayer and a furry. So she ordered her furry cosplay off of Amazon, but because the water dragon was blocking all the shipments, her Amazon Prime didn't ship in 2 days or less. So she got really angry, and she was trying to basically pretend to be the priestess so that she could get her cosplay faster. But we ignored her, so then she just came down and took the cosplay from us, which was inside the water dragon. And now she's gone to go kill the Queen of Japan. So we're going to go stop her. So unfortunately, Isun won't let us use fast travel right now, otherwise we could save some time. Because Isun's a bit of a dick, and he doesn't understand the urgency of the situation. So we're just going to run around the Ryushima coast here. With some pretty cool music playing in the background, by the way. I like this song. What? Oh, whatever. So that's the ghost of the real Rao, who evil Rao killed as part of her cosplay ritual. You know, happens to the best of us. So as it turns out, Rao had a secret tunnel to Himiko's palace. So now we're in Himiko's palace, which is quite convenient, because otherwise we'd have to go through Seion again, which is a bit of a gauntlet. But unfortunately, all this does mean, since we have to go see Himiko again to rescue her from the cosplay, we have to go do Fire Tablet Skip again, so that process begins now. Did I lose it? I did, unfortunate. No, I hit the lava. Yes, we got it. That'll save a fair bit of time. Although we might not be able to world record even with this. So, as a furry, she's defeated the same way the dogs are defeated, which is with SFSJ bombs. And she behaved nicely. Very nice. So now that we've defeated Rao in her cosplay, she has gone and retreated to her evil secret base of operations. And we need to go reach her secret base of operations before nightfall, because otherwise it'll completely disappear for some reason. Because her base of operations is actually a huge mobile volcano, and it can only be located using the power of precognition, which was the part of the reason that we wanted to get to Himiko, because Himiko happens to have the power of precognition. But unfortunately Himiko's dead now, but she did have enough life left in her to give us one more spirit photograph of Rao in a bedroom in Egypt or something like that. So now we have to go to Oni Island, which is Rao's place. And we get to listen to more of this cool music. Nice. That's a bit of a problem. Slow, but oh well. We skipped the fight. We have to do that fight skip twice, obviously, since we never removed the trigger. So this is Arahime, the Queen of the Draconians, and she has decided that she's going to fight cosplay with cosplay. She's going to turn into a massive body pillow and form a bridge leading to Oni Island. Nice, we got that trick first try. That's a big skip that lets us skip another use of Inferno that we normally were required to have, as well as a requirement for the fire tablet, which we never got, obviously. So, as it turns out, we can sort of skip the first half of this dungeon by just going out of bounds here and going around the mountain to the back area. This trick is quite difficult because you're constantly sliding down the mountain because it's a slippery slope, and we have to maintain a certain level of height before the end of the trick. So if we're not like jumping on point, we'll slide too far down the mountain and we'll have to restart. If you fall into the water, it's completely done. So this tiger statue here is what we're trying to reach. We need to get close enough for it to activate our rejuvenation ability to restore the arrow on its back. So this is Gekigami, the god of thunder and onslaught. And this is basically Waterspout, but for electricity. This ability is called Thunderstorm. And this lets us activate a bunch of mechanisms throughout the dungeon. So all rotating bridges, you can jump through the bottom of them. So that saves us a bunch of time. And here's our first instance of an electric key. It's a regular key, except it has electricity, so it can be used as a source for Thunderstorm. And then there's a fight skip here. If I do it correctly. It's quite an annoying fight skip because you have to go all the way around the edges of this room. And then there's this cool section here, which is a paper door maze. It's quite clever. But we know the solution. And there's this scripted fight here. These are poltergeists. We can just kill them quickly with an exorcism slip. opens this gate here. So we're actually supposed to have been to this area already, like way earlier. But we skipped the first half of the dungeon, so we never saw it. And then here we're just going to buy a bunch of large exorcism slips, because that's basically all we're going to be buying for the rest of the run. And then we can blow up this statue with electricity for some reason. I guess Ninetales or Evil Rao decided to put a bunch of explosives in her dungeon. And we need to power slash all of these sentries. Here's another instance where, if I can do this correctly, R3 is going to come in handy to turn around the camera quickly. And then this next section here is actually a side scroller, which is interesting. So this is a purely platforming section. Unfortunately, we can't really go too fast here because we're locked into some cycles. So we have to wait here, for example, for this spiky platform to rise. Yep. Almost fell down there. And now we have to wait here again. You can technically beat this cycle, but it's quite difficult. And it doesn't matter too much. It's only a couple seconds time saved. And then this here is where the cycles really matter. Now we have to wait a bit, but this is hard. Looks like I can't make it. A bit slow. Oh well. So this is the 4th floor of Oni Island, and this is full of skips. There's a bunch of stuff we do here. I made a mistake. And we can just clip the camera through here to skip half of this floor. This is Toby the Prayer Slip. We're supposed to have already met him like several times already. But he's just going to die here. And then that's the end of Oni Island. So now we just need to go fight Evil Rao or her persona, Ninetales. Shout out to the guy who goes yo in the song. Nice. attacking it. Damn, fine. We lost a bunch of time in here. Unfortunate. It's still possible to PV, but not by much. This is a very bizarre run. A bunch of weird stuff happens. We'll put it at that. This could have easily been PV if I didn't make certain mistakes. I actually almost got both fire tablet skips quite, like, first or second try. Like, really fast, basically. But I messed them both up by not paying enough attention. So that's just how that trick goes. So now we're going to Hokkaido, now that we've defeated the furries. As it turns out, there's an undersea tunnel right over here to Hokkaido. So now we should actually go meet like a cool werewolf guy, but we're going to not do that because it's slow. Even though he's cool, it would be too slow to meet him. So we could do this big camera adventure underneath the map to bloom this tree from underneath, even though we're supposed to like blow up a whole mountain in order to get to it first, which is very cool. So we're going to do another cool thing in order to skip a big fight with an enemy that's really slow to fight. So we can get around this invisible barrier here by using this vine flower. Although this is probably going to take 4 vines. Yep, we got it. It's supposed to take 3, but that's fine. Not a big problem. So now that we've skipped our way through Kamui, we're now at a village. And I'm going to skip our way through here too. So normally you're supposed to help the people of this village. We're actually like a race of werewolves named the Oina. They're really cool, but they're also really needy, so we don't want to help them. You can see one of them coming up right here. This guy's name's Samiko. He's really pissed, so we don't want to talk to him. And we're just going to climb out of bounds here around the mountain in order to get behind their gate that blocks off their sacred mountain, because we need to go to their sacred mountain. And then we can clip out back into bounds here. And now we're in the big mountain area. Those are the mountains. This is the sacred ship. That's also the final boss dungeon place. But we can't go there yet because it's frozen, so we need to go do a bunch of shenanigans to get it melted. So we're supposed to do like 35 minutes worth of stuff, which includes going back 100 years in time. We would rather not do that, so we're just going to skip it by doing this. So this dungeon's supposed to be basically locked off for a huge portion of gameplay, because it's the final dungeon. But we're just going to clip into it from the side, which is a huge convenience. So this is Waka Shrine. This is yet another dungeon we're going to be skipping most of. We're going to be skipping basically the first floor and then the rest of the dungeon. After a brief point where we go get another brush power, which we'll need. It's a cool new tech I learned. You can actually do the key skip from a bit farther away than I originally thought. And so, you're supposed to have an ability here that lets you slow down time, but as it turns out, Fire Burst, in addition to replacing Inferno, also slows down time, but only briefly. Yeah. I'm not supposed to hit that fight trigger. But we can just leave it, so it's not a big problem. So this enemy here is a Great Tengu. It's one of the harder enemies in the game. But we're just going to kill it instantly. So we have no respect. And then here's this slot machine. So we need to solve this slot machine puzzle in order to get the next brush power. Unfortunately we ran out of ink, so we need to upgrade our ink here. Okay, now we're going to go skip the rest of this dungeon. This trick coming up here is quite difficult, and it's followed by a very hard segment where I can actually die. So let's hope that doesn't happen. That was clean. That was so clean. I don't even need health. So this is Oki. We've never met him before, but he's going to watch as we nuke the final boss of this dungeon. He's basically just here for the show. So this is a boss rush. We just have to kill all 5 of these bosses, most of which we haven't fought before, even though we were supposed to fight all of them already. This first one here is the boss of the Imperial Palace, Blight. This is the guy that was making all the people in there sick. who we never saved, by the way. They're still dying. But we're going to kill Blight right now. Unfortunately, we don't have the power we're supposed to have in order to defeat Blight, which is Veil of Mist. It's the same power that lets us slow down time. But fortunately, he can be defeated without it, because he makes himself vulnerable even though you don't have his weakness. Excellent. And that is Blight. So this is Orochi. This is another fight we skipped. This is actually the hardest boss fight in the entire game. This is even harder than the final boss. So I'm going to need to focus in order to get this on point. Excellent. Great first phase. Although I did get hit, but that's just the reality of it. Oh no, that's really bad. I'm not supposed to hit him there. This is a disaster. Oh no. Fortunately I have an extra life, but I'm gonna need to lose a bunch of time here. And usually I hope I can keep that extra life for later. Really? Oh my god, dude. This is by far the worst phase 2 I've ever had. I keep getting comboed out by the fire. That was absolutely atrocious. I've never had worse luck than that on fire. I lost over 50 seconds, or almost 50 seconds on that. I can't believe it. Like, half of that shit has never happened before. The first phase was so good, and then the second phase just, like, I kept getting hit by the fire. I kept screwing up the cycles on the head's attacks. And then I kept getting hit by fire again and again and again, and I died. That was so bad, dude. I should still be able to world record, but that's kind of disappointing, because that probably loses me the sub 228. This is going to be a much worse run than it would have been otherwise. Oh well. It's kind of bad. Nice, I got him in the bark. Oh no, I'm inside the portal. Okay, and one last moment where we can possibly lose the record, which is right here. What a heartbreaking Orochi Phase 2. I can't believe that's never happened to me before. It seems like something obvious now that I've seen it. Like an obvious risk. But things just went so downhill. I didn't exactly deal with it great, although I did at least recover fast enough that I didn't lose my minute. I definitely lost a minute on that fight before. Disappointing. Oh no. Alright, time to look at my notes. So I do not want to make 19 seconds worth of mistakes in Yami. Although that would almost be a bit of a blessing. I'm gonna have to upload this as a VOD. It's gonna say world record. Oh well. That's just how it goes. You win some and you lose some. Now he's gonna light on fire. And that's the last of phase 2. That is enough, right? Did I use 5 or? I think I need to use one more. We'll just use one right now. That's wind. That should be Inferno, which we never got, by the way. Alright, let's do that. And that'll be Veil Fist. Another ability we never got, by the way. This music is fantastic. I'll never stop gushing over it. And one more hit, and then we're going to be at the final phase. Long loading zone. Wow, really? gonna happen, by the way. You can get locked out of the thing. That's it. Game over. Final time should be 08. 2:28:08. 07, nice. Well, I did my best. I tried to get a sub 2:28, but Orochi was like, no. I'll have my revenge. I also did die once, which is quite unusual. But that was still fun. It's kind of cool that I can actually just get world records this fast. It shows there's still a lot of room for improvement, despite how fast the time this already is. But man, these times are kind of crazy. I definitely still can do a couple seconds better at the beginning. I shouldn't have lost all this time in Hana Valley, but I did because of bad RNG, along with a bad ball push. Then I lost a bunch of time here. What was this for? Oh yeah, I messed up blockhead a couple times. And a couple other things that weren't optimal. Then, what else? Oh yeah, my fights, a lot of my fights were kind of bad, especially some of my dog fights. But then there were a lot of other things that were good about this run. The fire tablets were... The tab skips were both pretty good. This one was only 1:30. And then what was the second one? The second one was also only... This was like 1:40. Or 1:50 actually. So that's like, both of those are like quite good in terms of consistent performance, even if they're not stellar in terms of like my best times. But then I had a really good Evil Rao fight that saved me a bunch of time here. I did save a bunch of time from this fire tab skip because my PB had a very slow fire tab skip too. Then I saved a bunch of time in Oni Island because I didn't mess up the entry skip. But I did lose all the time throughout the rest of Oni Island just to not playing very cleanly. So that's something I should probably grind out, is the interior of Oni Island. Then mostly everything else was good. I just kept saving time throughout the rest of the run, up until Orochi, where things sort of fell apart in Phase 2. But that's just Orochi. That's the fight where things are gonna go wrong, if ever. So hopefully I did manage to local record this, and I did, so we'll stop the recording here.